Hi group. This week our readings were over the nonlinear models, and we had several articles to read as well as a chapter from our book. And I think a common thread among these articles as I was reading that really stood out to me was the how it was a common theme was how the society and environmental influences affect the identities of and are inseparable to the culture. In all of the, especially in all of the articles in Wren's Understanding of Mixed Race, in Alex Wilson's Two-Spirited People article, and in Truba's, I don't know if that's how you say it, Truba's Multiple Identities article, to me they really all had a centered focus of how the society and the environment, that the backgrounds of the populations that they referred to and the cultures really had an influence and affected the identities, and how they were not separated. It was all intertwined, and it really encompassed the whole identity, not just a piece here and a piece here, which coincides with the non-linear models that we're focusing on. So that's definitely a common thread in Wren's Understanding of Identities of Mixed Race. I think it's a she, really looked at the environment and how we can implement a more diverse culture in higher ed, and Justin, that was one of your questions as well, and I really liked your examples about the orientation and the housing lottery, how you really are not forcing, but you're really encouraging, and it is forcing, I guess, or the housing lottery, students to come out of their shell and to experience other cultures that most of the time they are not used to. Some college students are from different backgrounds and may have, a lot of times they may have experience in one particular nationality, or like something they're not used to, a population unlike themselves. But on a campus culture, we have so many different nationalities and populations and cultural diversity. So they may be, a student may be around one certain population in high school, but when they come to college, there's so many different ones. So I think that's a great idea, the housing lottery and the orientation, to really mix things up and let students get out of their common, the comfortable zone, and really experience others and how they view the world. Also, Alex Wilson's personal account of the Two-Spirited People was interesting to me. I liked how she really focused on the identity development, racial development, sexual development, and the development theory. It was interesting to me in her article how she spoke about the indigenous people and how the ethics that really drive them, those main ethics, and how those ethics in that culture, in her culture, they really directly affect the behavior in their worldview. Especially the example she gave of how the ethic of basically keeping quiet when in our culture we're taught to, I feel like in American culture we're taught to speak up when you think something's not right, or say how you feel, or speak up, and it was very interesting to me that in her culture, the indigenous people, that it was more of they were viewed as passive, passive accepting, when really they have their own opinion, and she had her own thoughts, but she was respectful and did not say anything. So that was very interesting to me, and that obviously directly affects her behavior and worldview and how society views them as well. So that was interesting. And then in Trivia's multiple identities, he really focused on, and this one really resonated with me more than the other two, because I felt like, he really talked about, and I say he, I think it's a he. Yeah, it's a he. Why some people of color are successful and use their backgrounds and their culture diversity as an advantage, and are able to have these multiple identities and able to use each one to their advantage, whereas some people of color are not. They do not use that to their advantage, and they're not successful. That's very interesting, because in where I live, there's a large population of Hispanic Americans, and it's mainly because I live in a rural area here in South Georgia, and there's a large demand for farm help and farm hands, and so basically, it brings in a lot of a Hispanic community. And so in where I live, in my small town, especially in the elementary school, there's a large population of Hispanic children. And I've dealt with it firsthand, and I've experienced these kids firsthand, and I really can relate with how they would probably have multiple identities, because they're bilingual. They have both languages, and then most of the time in the summer they go home to Mexico, or they go to see their relatives in Mexico, and they're gone pretty much all summer. And a lot of them in the classes come back even late into the school year, in August, September, well, mainly like late 2 weeks into August, because they go back home to Mexico to see their family and relatives and stay. So, and I know I've spoke with a lot of their families, and they send a lot of their money back to where they live. So I could really relate with this article, and especially with the Hispanic population from where I'm from. So that was very interesting to me. As far as the questions, Justin, that you asked, on an administrative level, what is necessary for university to have in order to support and foster a culturally sensitive and encompassing environment? I feel like for a university to truly embrace a cultural sensitive environment, we have to implement. We can't just speak out. Actions speak louder than words. We have to do it for it to really to spread and embrace it and encompass the idea of a culturally diverse university. So I think by putting it into our not just putting in our policies, of course it needs to be embedded in policies, procedures, all of those such things, but also our activities. Everything needs to have a common focus and embed our curriculum. Across the board. I really feel like, this class alone to me has really had a great focus on diversity, and it just really broadens your view of different cultures. And so I feel like this is a great curriculum itself, this course, about helping have a broad view of different cultures. And I feel like our population in higher ed is changing. It's so diverse as it is, and it's just continuing to grow with diversity. So as our demographics are changing, we have more immigrants, like what the Trubia's article mentioned. So I think that's, we just need to implement and have more activities and curriculum, and just have it embedded across the board in our colleges and universities. Your second question was, how do the theories and articles in this week's reading shape our vision of the future? I think it helps broaden, I mentioned this earlier, I think it helps broaden our view in the sense of, are we always going to relate with somebody else's background and their culture? No, we're not always going to. I can't always relate with everybody's culture, but I feel like if I can keep an open mind and, we can always learn something from one another. So I feel like we can always learn from each other and just be respectful of each other. I feel like there's so much to learn, and everybody has something to contribute. So I think mainly, it broadens our view and our understanding of each other. So, and then your third question was, on a personal level, how has, on a personal level or an account of something that has affected us in a diverse culture, or something that we've experienced. And like I said, I think every person has a story to tell, and I think we all have something to contribute to one another. And I just love to hear people's stories, and especially when they're different from me, because like I said, I feel like we can all learn from each other. And I have a high school student that was telling me his story just 2 weeks ago, and it was really riveting to me. And I've told several other people since then about how it really touched me, because this young individual, he's just excelling in high school beyond belief. And I asked him about his background and where he was from, and because he is an immigrant, he moved here from Mexico when he was around, I think he said around 2 or 3, and he is the youngest of 4 children. And he told me that his family, his father started looking, the reason they started looking for employment, his father started looking for employment in the States, is because his older sister, was almost kidnapped in Mexico. And somebody saw it and they saved her, and it was a very riveting story. So she was almost abducted, and so that really drove them to start looking for his father, because he was educated in Mexico. So he started looking for things in employment in the States, and so he was able to get a job with University System of Georgia. So they moved to Georgia, and so and from there he talked about overcoming language barriers, and just really having that multiple identity of the culture and blending them. And he has done an excellent job. He has many leadership roles, and where he's at, he's an excellent speaker, and he speaks from his background, but he blends it with a commonality of how everybody can overcome and use it to their advantage. So I feel like that is a great story, and it really goes well with our readings for this week. So that is how I feel, and I will see you all in class. Bye.